Manhood, brought to you by Jameson, natural sources since 1922, and Racetrack.
So thanks for joining us for another conversation on manhood. This one, there's a lot of dialogue that was taking place just before we hit that record button. So I want to make sure that you guys are in on this topic. It's a bit off topic from the subjects that we would have picked going into the season. But it's a very important one. You know, some of the feedback that we've been getting is that we need to have some younger people on the set. And initially I took umbrage to that because I was like, you know, I'm a young guy. I feel young. I think I look young. Don't mind the salt and pepper, all that in it. You know, women don't fool yourselves. You know, the salt and pepper is experience. So let me get straight into it. I have with me today Sarius Gishad, announcer in training, a good friend, Kimran, aka Crazy Legs, influencer, producer, good partner, and Niall Royal McNish. He's royal. And the topic today, you know, with these gentlemen, is based on being single. And in being the fact that the three are single, not necessarily disengaged. I said single. What do men really want? What do boys really want? What does the male population, Trinidad and Tobago in general, really want? And that's what we're really here to discuss. So, Sarius is in for us for the first half of the show, and then of course Johanse will join us as our behavior change consultant to give us some more perspective on the ultimate conversation outside of what do men really want when we start to speak about respect. So let me jump straight into it. Sarius, what do the younger generation really want? What do you want? What does a man want?
I mean, it's tough to speak for a whole generation, but to me, I know personally, I don't have any immediate plans or long-term plans for relationships or anything like that. Strictly because I have to me personally, I've seen so many people older than me, 10, 15 years older than me, go through so many things on so many levels, whether it be divorce or just toxic relationships in general. And it really put things into perspective for me growing up and seeing all of that, because I've seen so many toxic relationships. So to grow up and see all of that, it put things into perspective for me personally for what I wanted. And what I want probably doesn't really align with what the typical 23-year-old really wants in 2023. It kind of boils down to me just focusing on building my wallet and building my mind and spirit, you know, growing as a person before I could even consider becoming one with somebody else.
Right, but that's on relationships, and that sounded really good for your first dig at being on manhood, right? But let's be real now, right? What does it really want? Is several girls, you know, you don't want a parrot on a stick. You want to drive, you want to drive that luxury car. You want to travel.
I'm not sure. I have real plenty trust issues, honestly speaking.
Right,
and coming up in a more liberal generation, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to sexual activity, there's less of an importance I've seen recently, at least on the love aspect of it.
Right,
that's true.
You know, it's more it's more just an action now than anything, right? A lot of people say I am an old soul because they think I'm old school because I look at sexual activity as making love, as two souls becoming one. You know,
so this guy, ladies.
Yeah.
This man puts out his resume.
Yeah, boy. Is he doing it for the camera? Come on.
Allotted, name and number.
It's not one of those. We're not going to put your Instagram handle.
It's not saying I'm an old soul.
I'm old school. I want to cuddle. You know, really.
But there's two sides to that coin, right? So it has that side of it for me because, I mean, to me, it's a lack of options when you're that type of person.
Right.
And then they have the other side of me that is just like, Dread, I know, start working. And, you know, recently we had a $200 trend in Trinidad and Tobago. But to me, I looked at people's reactions to that. Men and women across the island were talking about, man, $200 is plenty, or $200 is not enough. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, I can't even afford to take myself on a date. I go on.
So Instagram handle taken down. right away.
No,
You know,
man.
so-
Oh gosh,
but,
I'm
but,
being real.
but Zarius, yeah, no, I appreciate you being real. And what it comes down to, I mean, and let me see if we could contextualize some of it here, is that the Gen Z,
Yeah.
the younger generations that we're talking about, it's not that sex isn't important or it's trivialized. It's just not as important as maybe previous generations.
It's not on that pedestal
And
anymore.
It's not on that pedestal. So therefore, if it happens, if your number is higher, which we're going to be speaking about on another episode or conversation with Manhood, if your number is say 20, 30, it matters not. That's not what you're looking at. It's what connection do we have now? What are we building? And where do we go from here? You know, so maybe more polyamorous relationships. I don't know. I mean, Niall, you know, you want to speak to that, I'm sure. So is that what you're saying?
I mean, it's not for me personally.
Right. I know you want making love.
That's I mean,
Lover boy.
I've always looked at the whole polyamory thing because I've heard Niall talk. I've seen the episodes when Niall's talked about polyamory, and I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, that's real things to juggle, boy, just on a daily basis. I struggle to talk to one person, and you talking about 5, 6 people, and making sure everybody
It's
gets
called shopping.
equal attention and love and activity. And I just sit in here, I'm like, man, I can't even have, like I said, is definitely, you have to be built for that in terms of polyamory. You have to see life and love as a certain way to be okay with saying, yeah, man, I'll give you some love and I'll give you some love on Sunday, and then she will get some on Tuesday. And
Or
then,
no love at all.
Or no love at all.
Or no love at all. It's understanding.
Well, first of all, it was never polyamory, right? I still want one wife. You know, I just want to have co-parents, right?
Right.
But that's a whole different topic. But I feel what's happening now, at least in the younger generation, which I will fit myself into it, right? Is that
You're going there, okay.
there's a level of needed selfishness that is happening with men. Long time, when a man gets successful, his first thing is, I want to take care of a woman and a family, right? When a woman gets successful, her first thought would be, I don't need a man. So you see, there's a difference in the minute that they make it, right? But now, what I see, which is again back needed selfishness, is that when a man get his coin, he be like, yeah, what? I need to take care of myself first. I need to enjoy my freedom in this plane of success. And then if it is I find somebody of my ilk that I feel that could share my success, then we could move forward. Because I bet you, if you had multiple $200 in your pocket, you would have been pumping.
You'd be shopping.
You would have been pumping. You would have been, hey, Susie, hey, Sarah, was he seen? You'd have been flying out, be doing things.
I mean, not to cut you off, but I don't think I would, you know, honestly speaking, because of who I am, I'm laser focused on, if I have that 200 by 2 by 3, I turn that into 1,000. I'm looking at, okay, cool, let's make it 10,000. I'm not stopping to look at the roses and sit down and say, all right, cool, let me take a little bit to Movie Tongue and spend a little $60 on a date. You understand?
Okay.
So you believe that. I remember seeing a meme where they said, if you make the money, the women will follow. If you follow the women, the money will disappear.
I do believe that.
So
I do believe
I'm
that.
not putting women down to that's what they aspire to be.
No.
But there is some credibility in what you're saying. I mean, the men of the past, when you work hard, you're thinking, wow, I can look for that mate now. I can provide for my children. I can do things. I can get a house. Be a man. You know, do things that men be things that men generally aspire to be. We spoke about sugar daddies at one point, but that again is another conversation. And if you want to know more about that, look at the other episodes. But now we're saying that might be the focus, where the woman may still have back in the day, and now they may still look at that as, I make my money, I don't need a man, and that in itself, I'm pausing because I'm like, oh my gosh.
There's a lot of that.
That just come out my mouth. I mean, how many people are gonna target the fact that I just said that?
Yeah,
but
But that's the reality.
That is the reality now. So if it is that a woman making her own money and she's independent, because that is the slogan. But the men can't say that at all. Like I always say, women make their money, the queen independent, but we can't say king independent. Right? So all well and fine. But let me just say that we go for someone and drop our standards.
Is
now.
that a new thing though? What you just said there, I wasn't aware of that.
No,
the queen
that
and
is-
the king
that is
thing.
something
Is
that-
it like toxic masculinity or mansplaining? Is it another thing that's come up
Toxic masculinity
recently?
is that a man will obviously want to be a man in certain
No, I'm talking
points.
about in terms of terms that were coined. Is the queen part of it one of those recent terms that are going around?
Well, most people, for myself, I can speak, obviously you want somebody to build with. And to get that, then you have to have understanding and 50-50 shares or whatsoever it is that you want to go forward with, which you're not going to get either or, because it will have like a power struggle somewhere in between there. And this is where the male testosterone, bravado, dominance will be like, we make certain decisions. You can make your own thing, girl. We could do this thing together. But at the same time, and all too, is that we getting it pulled from us slowly but surely from under our feet. And if we just say, okay, you drop your standards and you want to build with somebody or whatsoever, then the probabilities of that is even lower, because everybody don't want to build anymore because of the time and investment. They want somebody self-made immediately.
That is true.
And if you want somebody self-made immediately, then how much could you trust this person for long term that they are riding for you or are they riding for your career?
So you spoke there again. You happen to mention the word trust. Zarius mentioned the word trust, being trust issues. So I realized trust is really top of mind, and I want to hone in once again to the topic of today. How we view things. All of these conversations might be a reasoning as to why more and more certain fabrics of our moral standard or compass from previous incarnations or previous generations might be slowly but surely being torn or ripped or moved away or
I would say evolve.
That's something. But an older generation, it would be seen as torn, or the fabric is no longer there. But to the younger generation, it's like you said, it's evolving. So I come back to it, not just that you guys are younger than me, certainly Zarius is part of the Gen Z. What do men want? And being single men, what are you waiting on? And this is not necessarily to go into a relationship. I'm talking about out of life.
Well, for me, working for everything that I wanted was just wanting a better life, stability, bill-free. So that requires more of your skill, self-worth, determination to get it done, to retire your family. That is that period. But for long-term men, as for myself, I would say, obviously we want to carry on our lineage. I want a little me running around the place.
True.
You understand?
Just
Most
sow
men
your
will want that.
seeds,
Yes,
yeah.
they want that. We want to carry on that. But at the same time, and all too, like him, carrying some of our older generation morals, is that we don't want a broken home. We don't want the child to grow up broken. I think that men right now would rather give their all to have a family life, to ensure that they have a proper family life.
You think?
I think so right now.
But there's so many children out there. And I know the conversation came up at one point about the reason so many children don't have their father around is sometimes as a result of the mother locking off the father and not
Right.
wanting the father in that child's life. But there are many other instances where the father themselves don't want any part of us around the child.
Well, we don't
It-
call
it
them
just-
men at the end if you can't be there for your child and you're not a man. They will be real about
Correct.
that. If you can't put that and take care of that,
Yeah.
then we separate you immediately.
Well, like they say,
you fall
anybody
under
could
the
be-
just I reproducing and making numbers in this world and not,
That's it.
and not growing men up. And I think that is something that we getting happening right now. Broken homes, separation, too many people losing the value of family. And this is where it comes down to women, I would say sometimes, but they control the sex wherever it goes. And men would love purity more, knowing that, hey, we know this, if a woman say,
Self-control.
you ain't getting nothing until 6 months, 1 year or whatsoever, but this girl real nice, real thing. You as a man gonna tell yourself, I go hold out. You know what? She's a nice person. I will hold out.
You're holding out with her, or you're holding.
With her, with her,
Wait.
with her,
Wait. You know where you're going.
with her,
Because
with her.
let's be real. You're holding out and saying, "Hey, I understand where you're coming. I'm not pressuring you."
I know you're talking about otherwise,
but
because she's a man.
while you're not pressuring, right? You're dipping in another
Yeah,
funny
obviously.
jazz.
But that is men. And that is starting about those primitive inmates at the end of the day that have no control over hormones, that we need to just go out there and be like, yeah, boy, I feel good. Cracks, if I know what it is. Because we have to release that. Women, on the other hand, I would always say more evolved because they have the power to control that. But let me just say, you know this female, like I was saying, but this girl real nice, she treating you real good, everything like that. She running thing for you, she saying, hey, 9 months I real like you, you had to hold off. But let me just say, this girl who get a thing, and like, hey, but you're watching that one, and you know you can't choose she has a long term. Because why? You're getting it. So if I get it, who else getting it?
I just want to. I wanted to answer,
So,
respond
I
to
just
that.
saying,
Now. But we're gonna take a short break. We're not gonna have much dialogue because I really want you out there to hear a lot of the conversation that happens behind the scenes. I want it now in front of the camera, and to finish off on that topic. But again, I still don't feel I have the nugget as to what single men really want. And again, to speak about this respect and feeling disrespected. So, and I want to hear more from Zarius as well. So we're taking a short break and coming back with some of this juicy conversation that seems to somehow go on to relationships. When I just want to know what else you want.
We're back with Manhood. As always, in between the break, we had an intense conversation happening, and we had to stop the conversation just so that we could include you guys back into the mix now. So, where were we? What we was actually discussing in between the break was they wanted to get down to what single men wanted, right? And I feel like the answer is really simple. Personally, for me, one, we don't want to make the mistakes of our parents. I find that's the main thing. Like we saw the errors that they made, and we don't want to make them. And two, we just want to enjoy our life.
No, in that enjoyment, is that you don't want responsibility?
Yes.
Is it commitment issues?
I don't want to say commitment issues because I still want to be committed. It's just not in the time frame that most people would have deemed me to want my commitment. So you're supposed to be ready for marriage by the time you enter in 30. That's how it used to be. But now, men want to play in their 30s. So it's really, to be honest, it's a stunted maturity, is what I feel a lot of men want. They want to play a little bit longer than they need to or should, based on society's needs. And
So you still think that, and I just want to put it into context, play a bit longer, just like women are working longer and their careers are going longer and they're finding other ways through biology, through technology, etc., to say freeze the egg. They're being forward thinking, but at the same time they're telling themselves, I want to be able to, in my 40s or late 40s, into probably sometimes even 50, still have the option to really fulfill for myself. So it's not selfish, it's probably acknowledging more self-worth as to what you want to then, because of that biological clock, now that technology is allowing it to then say, okay, at this stage in my life, I'm going to settle. And I know women or people a lot of times have an issue with that word settle and compromise. But what I'm trying to get from you, is it that you're saying that men as well want to play longer but still have that vision that you want a family, you want that picket fence, you want children, you want a dog, or is it that you not on any of that? Like, is that even a thought? Is that you feel that you really have that, everyone has that need to spread their seed?
I actually think that I'm sure that you want a family, right? No? Wow. Like,
That's what I'm saying.
Like, okay.
That's what I'm saying.
I want it, but
So to continue on what you were saying there, right? Again, I kind of grew up being educated a certain way, right? So I grew up with teachers telling me, look at the world, we taking the resources, we polluting, we need less people, we're overpopulated, right? So I'm looking at the world and being like, I need to add more. I'm looking at the society that I would have to bring a child into. And the responsibility, because a lot of people, I feel, have kids. Me personally, I feel like they have kids for selfish reasons. They want to have a kid because you want to have a kid.
True.
Right? The kid in any scenario would never be the guilty person. The kid didn't ask to be here. The kid didn't ask to be born. You had the kid, right? It happens. Actions occur and you end up with your end result 9 months later. So you had said something about trust and commitment issues, right? And not wanting to repeat the mistakes of our parents. And I definitely agree with that. So I strongly agree with that in a way, because you grow up, the divorce rate in every country across the world, especially in the Caribbean, in the States, in Canada, everywhere, has grown, right? And Crazy Legs was talking about earlier, where sometimes you put 2 years, 3 years into a relationship and you feel, okay, maybe you're ready to take that next step and make that commitment and say, okay, that person should be my partner for the next half of my life, for the next quarter, 3/4 of my life.
Till death.
Till death do us part.
To us part.
Right? And I find a problem sometimes looking at that way of thinking and saying, okay, I'm going to meet somebody and I'm going to be with them forever. Forever's a really long time. You know, during COVID, my grandmother passed away, and it put mortality into perspective for me, right? Because, you know, death is always looming over every person. But I feel like when you reach a certain age, whether it be you lose somebody that's close to you in life, and it puts it into perspective where, right, it's going to happen to you eventually, at some point, but you know you're living on borrowed time. You have a one life to live. You only live once, right? So it puts I used to have that opinion of, yeah, man, I'm going to grow till we great with this person or whatever. And then I turned around and I looked at it and I'm just being like, that's one life. Who is that special in the world that you want to marry? I looked around I started looking around, because I like to observe things plenty. So I started looking around at my surroundings, at people in my age range. I started looking at what my brethren were doing. I started looking at what cousins were doing, girl cousins, guy cousins, all of them. And I started observing of how their relationships were, if they were even happy to begin with. If they were happy by themselves, if they were happier by themselves, or if they were happier with this person.
Or what did they understand when they went into that relationship? What did they understand that they were getting out of it? You know, I listened to this podcast once where, you know, the guy, the male and the female were having a conversation, and the male went into it with thinking commitment, and he knew, okay, this is longevity and it's part of what a relationship is. The woman went into it with expectation, and the moment that expectation dropped, and the vows would have been for better or worse, and it started to get to that period of worse, it's like, I didn't account for this. I wasn't expecting this part of it. You know, sickness and in health. I'm not up for that. And it's how honest and true you are to yourself when you're giving that commitment as to whether you can really handle it and what you expect out of that person. You know, I had a conversation with a friend of mine just you know, a couple of days ago, and one of the things was that in the relationship, what she liked about the person was that he made her laugh. And well, you know, that's a lot. Women like somebody who can make you laugh,
of course.
But is that person does that mean that the chemistry, the physical chemistry, was that chemistry there? The answer was no. So the moment that laughter dissipated, right, or the fella became a bit demanding in other things, or felt a bit cocksure about himself, you know, it's like, who you feel you are.
So the dynamic changed.
The dynamic change, like, wait, no, you're not making me laugh as much. Oh, no, now you feel you're something. Because to her, it's like, well, you're not that strapping man that I really have attraction to, or may have had attraction to, or is out there. You know, I want you for laughter. And then so again,
And then it turns out you're not that funny.
yeah, and it might be that funny, you know, or it's not funny that you're broke. Yeah, you know.
So not a laughing matter.
So it comes down to really and truly, you know, I've always said that maybe vows should change now to, I will always give you my truth. Because, like you said, that the younger generation of that word forever, and even in jobs, you know, the fact is a 6-month turnover. This job for life type thought process or you know, way people ascribe to is no longer there. but again, because I know we have to take another short break, and I want to thank Azarias for being here and being honest. And we want, of course, we're going to invite Johanse in to give his the psychology behind a lot of the behaviors and the why, commitment issues or resolve. Just to be, to really, your sort of final thoughts, final for this conversation, and clarify maybe not just your perspective, but what again, and I'm going at it because I still don't feel I have it. What does a young man want out of life at this point? And I'm glad that you said that it's not always to have children, to procreate. It's not always to see yourself, because that in a way could be selfish. You could be being selfless, or you could be being, it might be admirable that you're telling yourself, I don't want to add to the commerce that's out there. I don't want to add to the 7-point-something billion when the planet was only designed for 2-point-something billion. There are many, conversations around those things. Again, it depends, what angle you're going to go, whether you're yin, whether you're yang. So sorry, let me just...
So definitely thinking about what I want from life is probably balance. As you said just now, yin and yang. To live just a balanced life on all levels, whether it be spiritually, financially, emotionally, to try and get better in touch with how I feel about certain things on a daily basis, on a yearly basis, going forward, what my plans are, really, to tell you the truth, honestly. I have no immediate plans for a relationship, like I said earlier. Definitely, kids might probably be out of the question, just because, again, raising another person is a very big responsibility.
When you can't figure yourself out.
When you don't know who you are. I'm not saying I don't know who I am, but I mean, a lot of people who have kids don't. A lot of people have the ability to be a mother and a father, but not a mommy and a daddy. So I heard a lot of that this past Father's Day when a lot of people were giving praise to every man can be a father. But not every man could be a daddy.
Correct.
So it put things into perspective for me when I used to think about if I'm ready. Because you have activities, you go to a party, you go to a lime, you meet a girl. Sometimes things happen, right? If you don't protect yourself accordingly, a lot of the times a kid pops out 9 months later.
Yeah.
So
that whole conversation we had about just the tip.
Yeah. So
Biggest lie.
whether you want to or not whether your religious beliefs are abortion or no abortion, whether anything on that spectrum comes into play, sometimes you just have to man up, take responsibility, and sit down and raise a child. Might not always be your option, but it is what your life turns into sometimes when you make certain decisions, and it comes down to what decisions you make now.
So just to put into context, guys, I know we have to go to the break, and I want to hear from Crazy and Niall with regards to, is it then that we're seeing the younger generation now living more in the moment? So it's not like they don't have a plan. Their focus is on, the past is gone, past is prologue, right? The future is not assured, the present is a gift, right? And so are we living in the moment and just enjoying what that presents?
I think it's less pressure from the parents, because where every generation that passed, they used to take on the traditions of the home. And as the generations, as you get younger, shifting, that pressure becomes less and less and less and less. So now, when it comes to, what was your generation name again? Gen Z. Crazy, right? His parents are pressuring him to have a family, and you need to have a good job and get a wife at 23. My father was married at 23 with his first child. I can't even fathom that. You understand? So, and you're 23 now.
Yeah, that put things into perspective when you really think about
I
it.
actually think so. There's less pressure coming down through the generations. So when you say the older generation looking at the fabric being torn, it's not that, it's more like they would keeping up the stitches in the fabric to keep it together. Crazy.
Just to add overall of this whole thing, I think where it is that we lost our way along the way is that men forget how to be men. Or let me just say that we don't have a community for men or course to be a man. And that's something that we need to find back to help build society or understand men or help them mentally. Because certain things that we'll come across in life.
So you're saying, and I wanted to finish your point, I just want to make sure that we're on course here. When you say they've lost their way, is it that we're saying that the old way was the way?
Well, the
and
old
that if
way
we bring
was
back the old way,
the old way, for example, like we were saying, 23-year-old, your dad had hit like around that, right?
Yeah.
But your dad raised a good son, was able to have a household, was able to do all these things with the economy back in that time, which shows that somehow he had a formula to be a man, to provide, to make sure everything was good. My son get his education and so on and so forth. And I think majority of us have that benefit from that generation. And we lost that somewhere along the line because why? We get too partyish. We get too much a spree. And like you were saying earlier, men in the titties. Yeah. Why? Because wealth or stability is harder to find in your 20s or your teens, but you gain it from the last of your 20s there to your titties. So you say, hey, I want to enjoy this money now. I want to go here. I want to buy that.
a good time to take a pause. A lot to take in there, maybe a lot of some conversation behind the scenes, because I'm not too sure I fully ascribe to what you're saying about old ways and new ways, because things change as you go along.
Yes.
And you know what the older generation may have had, they wouldn't have had access to social media, cell phones, you know, the access to planes, to cheaper flights. All of these things make communication and so it's good and bad, because now you open to a lot. They're the negative sides to it, but they're also the positive sides to it. You know, for me, I remember having a pen pal, you know, an ICQ and things like that was my only connection when I was living in Germany.
Writing letters.
So, you know, things are different, correct. And the art of doing those things have been lost, but things have progressed at the same time. So,
But did that have much more value, writing a letter?
I hear.
You remember writing a letter, not so?
I do. I don't know if I could write that much again because I'm always typing. But we take a short break. Zarius, thank you so much.
Been a pleasure.
For being honest, for being here and giving us your perspective. So once again, you know, a lot of really, really good conversation. Johanse, glad you're back with us. I know you took in a lot of the conversation that, you know, Zarius brought to the fore as a young person. You know, and I know we are young people ourselves. You know,
Right.
people don't get caught up with the white in our beards, etc. But I want to take this segment and use this segment to really now focus and hone in. We heard a lot of variations and different ideas as to what men really want. But does it come down to what men really want is respect? And let us talk about, we hear a lot of times people say, boy, you're disrespecting men. Whether it be a man to a man in a relationship, a man at work, it always comes down a lot of times or to that ego, which is you either feel respected or disrespected. Does that have to do with scarring? You know, really, what's your take on what do men really want?
All right. So we dive in deep into the word disrespect.
Yes.
Right? What do men really want? Again, we're not speaking for all men, right? But we're going based on our relationship with ourselves because we are men first, and then of course we interact with a lot of men. So I'll give it from a personal point of view first. Disrespect for me has evolved over the years, right? In terms of from relationships around people, etc. And I'll give the example, we spoke about the phone before. To me, if you're on the phone while we're talking, is a disrespect. Right? Unless, of course, you say, well, I'm doing something, you know, but I'm listening to you. If you give a caveat, right, I would take it. But if in the middle we speak and you just look down at your phone, to me, it indicates that whatever you're doing more important than me. Now, here that part, the more important part. So now I'll segue to a conversation I had with an inmate who he was doing a robbery. And in the robbery, he killed I think, two of the victims. And we always say, well, just rob the person. Why you kill them? And I had the opportunity to ask him, well, why he killed them? And what he said, now I'm not justifying what he said, but essentially what he said is that they disrespected him, right? Because what he wanted, and this might even go a little deeper now, a lot of criminals I've spoken to, what comes down to when they commit crime is at that moment, all the attention is on them. Now here what I'm telling you, and they say a pause reason because this is a deep. They didn't get certain recognition when they were young. Recognition, respect, right? So sometimes even unconsciously when they're committing the crime and all attention is on them, they are the center of attention. The attention that they may have not gotten from relatives, parents, etc.
Right.
So when he said he was disrespected, the people didn't react the way he thought they should react. So it's not an indictment, not to say they cuss him or anything like that. He is the perpetrator, and they're supposed to react a certain way because they have to respect him. And respect in his mind looked a certain way,
Right.
but they didn't react
To
that way.
cower, to cry, to do all of these different things, and they
Yes.
may have asserted themselves.
Yes. Well, he said one person did not cry. He said one person did not look frightened. Right? Now, inside the person could have been frightened, but they did not look frightened. And I'm saying that because even to us, we personally have our own perceptions of respect. And I'll segue again. My belief is common sense does not exist. What exists is your sense and my sense. So it's not even common. We have different values, different norms, etc. So we view the world through different lenses. So now if we talk about respect and disrespect, we view it through different lenses. And it may not always be through the lenses of being from a healthy place, because I don't know anybody who had a perfect childhood, right? So therefore, there are scars that we carry. There are things that we did not get that we would want in terms of our emotional and mental development. So now, when somebody may be saying, you know what, I was looking on the phone because you're saying a topic and I really want to research it for you to help you. Their place may be coming from a sincere place. But as soon as I see you on the phone, it automatically is disrespect. As soon as I see, and this is one I encounter a lot in couples therapy, your facial reaction. So, and even my wife, because sometimes I have a stoic face in terms of even my profession, I don't react. I would say I thought it would help in those endeavors, because sometimes wife would say, you're not listening, or I don't even see no reaction from you. So now that could be deemed disrespect. And then if I do something, she can say, well, wait you think your face so for?
Yeah.
Right? So it is that perception of, well, you don't like what I say or what? Or even the facial reaction could be rudeness, because I've encountered this a lot with parents and children. The child really sincere and not being rude to my parents, and not showing any disrespect to my parents, but that parent perception is either, well, you shouldn't have no reaction at all. But then, of course, when they have no reaction. So if you understand what I'm saying, and if we bring it back to men.
So your neolinguistics are important, and like even in your profession, you have to be mindful as to how the other person may interpret certain things.
Yes.
So you may be, like you said, listening, but to me, for example, when you were on your phone, it made me feel, if we're talking about feelings, that
You
I'm
chose to
that,
feel.
that I chose to feel, and that means I was out of control because I've given off my emotion to someone else to determine what I felt about myself. So yes, in other words, I chose to give off that control. The student has become the master. Yeah, with regards to this, but in seriousness, the at that point it was, when you say you're listening to me, it's like it's an option, because had it been someone maybe of maybe another stature or saying something that was really important to you at that point, right, you'd have given me that full attention. I'm just talking about into how many people interpret. Women say a lot of times that I'm nobody's option. I'm the first choice. And if you're not giving me that attention, or you're not giving me, all your love, or in different aspects of it, I'm nobody's option. You hear? But again, that's for another conversation. I want to come back to the fact that it comes down then to a certain level of scarring, or your or your societal influences growing up as to how you perceive respect and disrespect. And also, more importantly, when we ask the question, what do men want? Respect is huge on the agenda. Because it strikes the ego, and what Niall might feel disrespected by, I might have no issue with. Vice versa, what Niall may feel respected by, I might feel disrespected. So I want you to really kind of dig deeper into that for us and hear from some of the other guys. And you said something at the start, and I just want to once again say it because we haven't said it in a while, is that we're not speaking on behalf of all men. We are a few men speaking to all men. So this might be my opinion, but it's my thought on the topic.
I say this often on the show, on this conversation, being true to yourself, I think should be our highest priority as men. Right? Now I'm talking to myself too, because sometimes I have difficulty in just being honest. Even if I perceive the person mightn't take it in the way I want them to take it. Because even those scars, disrespect and scars, how would we even heal or even elaborate on those things if we're not honest? So you said you're on your phone. If you didn't communicate to me, I would not have even been aware of that. And I say I noticed that even with my wife, because sometimes when she said, this, when you do this, it indicates this to me. So we had a conversation. Is this your intent? And then she understood. So then now when, even sometimes I go on my phone when she's speaking, we already had that conversation.
So she understands.
So now it's no longer disrespect. But let's just say if I didn't say anything, if I wasn't honest, because a lot of us may just keep things inside, and we let it ruminate and let it fester, and then say, well, she's a disrespectful person or he's a disrespectful person, not actually having that conversation. Now, that is how common sense is formed, because now two people speak, so the sense becomes common between two of them, but it's not innate. So I put in that way, and then I want to add to what you're saying.
That's powerful.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
that.
that was a nice
and I
one.
want you
That was
to,
a nice one.
you impress yourself there, even, I'm sure, right? You're like, it's correct. I realize that. And the reason why that is powerful, because you touched on nerve with me with regards to something that I go through very often, where many people feel disrespected by sometimes my disposition with them, right? And whereas I know it's passion to that person's aggression. So you might find, I don't like how he spoke to me. Or I might be speaking to wifey. And she, as you said, the sense is now common. She now understands that when I say something, it's not out of aggression. But to someone else hearing, to them it's like, how he talked to us, oh boy. But it was just said. It wasn't. There was no malice. There was no aggression by it. So now, even more so, when I'm speaking to people, because of the depth of my voice, I almost go through some levels of anxiety where I'm speaking to you and I'm like, did they? So when you hear, people know, when you hear this rambling, sometimes the rambling is because I'm trying to bring context, trying to make you aware that, hey, I'm not saying this in an offensive way. I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm not saying this to disrespect you. I'm just saying something.
One thing I've learned being in the social realm, and this will carry a long way for people, and it's a skill that you have to derive. And it's one that take everybody neutral, because every person is going to be different, and like you say, everybody will be disrespected differently. And the way that you take something from someone may be weird, may be out of place, but that just may be their character, for example, like yourself. And it all comes down to you, how you react to it. And if you react to that in the manner of, well, he read out that I'm very disrespectful, or if it is that you want to be like, it is not my concern, that is the person how he is. If this is that how he is, if somebody has to speak to him, they'll speak to him. But for your inner peace, accept the people for how they are sometimes.
But as a chosen feeling crazy, what I'm saying to you is you may interpret that that's how he is.
Right.
But that
is how you are.
But that mightn't be how I'm acting.
Certain way you're trying to degrade anyone.
Correct.
Right. So you want everybody to understand you.
Becoming common.
Right.
I like that again. The sense. Yeah,
let's not do this in our man. Show that about.
Is important.
You know what I mean?
I didn't do so. I always say.
Bro.
I see what. And I think that's important, because if you take it from a neutral perspective, then you're still subject to interpreting how that person is, and I'm not going to choose to feel a particular way. But it comes back down to that mightn't even be the way I was actually feeling in the
No,
first
but then
place.
after you're asking for somebody to judge you. You see, if you stay neutral, if that's how Robert is that. That's how he reacts to get his things done. Let's go forward. How do you react to get your things done? And if we just respect everybody's way how they get along, because we know, obviously, it has no malice, like you said. We're not trying to disregard or degrade anyone. This is just the manner how they care about themselves, but they always mean well. You can, and I think this is something that people are always in their emotions. Because anything that gets so tick to them, God, but he was stupid. But they don't understand that if you look deep down inside, there's love still in that person. They don't look at you any differently. They're just passionate about what they do. They want it done. Plain and simple. But it's just that how the person gets on, they just want to react to the person's emotion.
So we have another soft touch like with Zarias, where you want to make love. So this is crazy softer touch.
No, I just say it because
we,
if it is that you want to stay sane
Correct.
as men, and this is what most fighters happen, because before a fight even happen, you can communicate it before. Because one thing I don't understand is, did I say something to disrespect this person? And if you be a man about it and be like, hey, brother, if I disrespect you, I'm sorry, and I didn't mean it, we're probably different in that manner. But let me talk to you, Rob, and you can save our life with that.
But if you choose to feel that way or you react on that, you basically what you're doing is you're out of control. So
And you have to control your emotions.
again, as we always say, in manhood, the conversation will, this particular conversation needs to end, but it's a topic that needs to continue, and we will discuss it more and more and more. So, gentlemen, what do men really want? Your final thoughts, and Johan said, I'd like you to close with that, because you might come in with another common sense.
100 billion US.
Cough.
Let's start with you, Niall.
What do men really want? To just to keep it on the topic of respect, personally, I feel that, let me go with what men should thrive for, and it would be, I feel that a perceptive maturity. That way they could understand what someone else, the perception of someone else, and I feel that that's where the key of communication comes in. And after that, life does get real easy. Because essentially what men want is just peace, a peaceful life. No stress, balance. And I wish Zarias was here at the time to hear this part, because he said that he didn't feel that anybody would be special enough to spend forever with. But having a woman by your side, especially a good woman, you would be a different type of man. You give a woman a seed of your plan and watch that grow into an oak tree. And I feel that's really important to have. And
I think what men really want is to become the best versions of themselves, but they don't know how to. They want that stability to be that man that their father were or who they were, that mentorship, or make sure that the family that they have for the future have everything or go through the struggles that they don't, and try to be the best version for their kids and be everyone, but they don't have the guidance. And I think that comes down to the fear of failure to actually dawn on them heavier than the possibility of becoming greater. So I think it's more of men just want to really find the real purpose of being a man long term and not just now.
that's it.
Johan, say why do we place so much importance on respect, or even more so on being disrespected, and act accordingly?
And I'm going to tie that answer into both of your answer, because we place that importance on disrespect because we want to be free. We want to be accepted for who we are by the outside world. But the thing is, if we don't accept ourselves for who we are inside, then we're forcing it on others. So I would say not necessarily know what men want versus to get what we want, we should develop the courage to be exactly who we are. To be the courage to be your true self. Your true self may be flawed, you may have the scars, but if you're honest about it, even if it's to yourself, you're able now to open it, you're able to face it and become better instead of us trying to make everybody around us respect us or make everybody around us accept us. Yeah.
A lot of nuggets in there. A lot of nuggets in there. You know, making sense common. You know, that's a good one.
Or do something
So
else.
you know that's a big one. That's a big one for me. So, what do men want? I hope we've touched on maybe given some sort of perspective. What do I want is to be the best version of myself and to leave a room better. That it may sound cliche, but to leave a room, a place, a legacy better than I found it, a positive impact, and for the Almighty to say, "Hey, you did well." That's ultimately what I want, and what I would strive to be. So, Niall, Crazy, Johanse, always a pleasure. This was a really good topic. Manhood, thanks for joining.
Manhood, brought to you by Jameson, natural sources since 1922 and Racetrack.